Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats. A comprehensive study. About the poet John Keats, 1795 to 1821, second-generation Romantic poet. Themes: transience, beauty, imagination, mortality. Major works: Endymion, Hyperion, Ode on a Grecian Urn, La Belle Dame sans Merci. Style: sensuous imagery, negative capability, odes, melancholia. Background of the poem: written in May 1819, during Keats's most creative period. Part of the 1819 Odes. Inspired by the real Nightingale's song in Keats's Hampstead Garden. Reflects personal anguish, death of his brother Tom Keats, Keats's own declining health. Structure of the poem. Form: Horatian ode. Stanzas: 8 stanzas, 10 lines each. Rhyme scheme: about decked. Meter: predominantly iambic pentameter with variations. Thematic concerns: transience versus immortality. Escapism through imagination and art. Death and the longing for oblivion. Nature's permanence versus human suffering. Illusion versus reality. Summary: Stanza-wise, Stanza 1, Introduction of Nightingale's song, poet's emotional response. Stanza 2, Longing to escape into the bird's world. Stanza 3, Desire to leave the physical world and its pains. Stanza 4, describes the world of imagination. Stanza 5, darkness and imaginative vision. Stanza 6, fascination with death, the idea of dying listening to the nightingale. Stanza 7, immortality of the bird's song across time. Stanza 8, poet's return to reality, ambiguity of imagination versus truth. Stanza 1, emotional overwhelm. The poem begins with the speaker feeling drowsy numbness, as if he had taken poison or opium. This numbness is not out of envy, but from too much happiness hearing the nightingale sing. The nightingale is imagined as carefree, living in a state of continual joy. Key idea: intense emotional reaction to the bird's immortal song. Stanza 2, longing for escape. The speaker wishes for a draught of vintage wine to escape the worries of the real world. He desires to be transported to the nightingale's world of carefree happiness and lush nature. Key idea: wine symbolizes poetic imagination and longing for escape. Stanza 3, reality of human suffering. The speaker contrasts the bird's joyful world with human suffering, where youth fades, beauty dies, and people suffer. Life on earth is full of pain, illness, and decay. Key idea: emphasizes transience of human life versus the bird's eternal joy. Stanza 4, imagination as a means of escape. Instead of wine, the speaker decides to fly to the bird's world on the wings of poetry. He acknowledges that his physical self cannot follow, but his imagination can. Key idea: poetry is more powerful than wine for transcendence. Stanza 5, entering the bird's world. The speaker imagines himself in darkness with the nightingale. He visualizes the scene around him using his other senses: scent, touch, and hearing, since he cannot see. Key idea: imaginative immersion into the natural world, led by senses. Stanza 6, contemplation of death. The speaker wishes for a painless death, at that very moment, feeling it would be perfect to die while the nightingale sings. He contrasts the eternity of the bird's song with his own mortal life. Key idea: death seems beautiful and peaceful under the influence of the nightingale's song. Stanza 7, immortality of the nightingale's song. The bird's song is described as eternal, heard by emperors and clowns alike throughout history. He refers to biblical, Ruth, and ancient, magic casements, allusions to emphasize the timelessness. Key idea: the nightingale's song transcends time and history. Stanza 8, return to reality. The speaker is abruptly pulled back into reality, as the bird flies away, and its song fades. He is unsure whether his experience was real or a dream. Key idea: The tension between illusion and reality. Was it all just poetic fancy? Symbolism and imagery. Nightingale, immortality, poetic inspiration. Wine, escape, intoxication of imagination. Darkness, mystery, death, introspection. Forest, natural permanence. Flight, imagination or poetic fancy. Key literary devices. Alliteration, deep delved, sunburnt mirth. Apostrophe, direct address to the bird. Enjambment, flow of thought and imagination. Oxymoron, tender is the night. Symbolism, nightingale, wine, darkling. Sensuous imagery, appeals to senses, sight, sound, touch, taste. 1. Alliteration. Keats uses alliteration, the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of nearby words, to enhance musicality. A famous instance is in the line, Singest of Summer in full-throated ease, where the repetition of the S and F sounds mimics the smooth and rich song of the nightingale. 2. Apostrophe. The entire poem is structured as an apostrophe, a direct address to an absent or imagined subject. Keats addresses the nightingale as the light-winged dryad of the trees, a mythical forest spirit. This device elevates the bird to a muse-like status, idealized and mystical. 3. Imagery. The poem is celebrated for its sensuous imagery, vivid descriptions that appeal to all the senses. Visual images like fast-fading violets covered up in leaves, olfactory images like the coming musk rose, full of dewy wine, and auditory ones like the nightingale's song, all serve to immerse the reader in the poet's experience. 4. Symbolism. Keats uses symbolism to convey deeper meanings. The nightingale symbolizes immortality, poetic inspiration, and the transcendental nature of art. Wine symbolizes escape and the intoxicating power of imagination. Darkness represents both the unknown and death. The forest symbolizes nature's eternity and permanence. 5. Enjambment. Enjambment, the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line, reflects the flow of thought and imagination. Keats's mind is carried forward line after line, mirroring his longing to escape into the bird's world, as seen in Where Palsy Shakes a Few, Sad, Last Grey Hairs, Where Youth Grows Pale. 6. Personification. Keats personifies abstract concepts to make them emotionally resonant. For instance, Beauty Cannot Keep Her Lustrous Eyes presents beauty as a mortal woman, subject to time and decay. 7. Metaphor. He uses metaphors freely, comparing the bird to a dryad, tree nymph, and poetry to wings that help him escape. Away, away. For I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his pards, but on the viewless wings of poesy. 8. Oxymoron. Phrase tender is the night is an example of an oxymoron, placing a soft emotional quality, tender, next to darkness, night, creating a haunting effect of peaceful melancholy. 9. Hyperbole. There is hyperbole, or exaggeration, especially when the speaker imagines dying in the bliss of the nightingale's song. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain. This dramatizes the moment of ecstasy, and the contrast between mortal suffering and poetic eternity. Assonance. Keats uses assonance, or vowel sound repetition, such as in Fade Far Away, Dissolve, and Quite Forget. The repetition of the and o sounds makes the line soothing and melodic. 11. Onomatopoeia. He subtly uses onomatopoeia, words that mimic sounds, such as the murmurous haunt of flies. The word murmurous captures the low buzzing sound. 12. Paradox. There are paradoxes that reflect Keats's complex emotional state, such as, I have been half in love with easeful death. This statement unites contradictory feelings of fear and attraction towards death, a typical romantic conflict between life and the longing. For release. 13. Mythological allusion. Keats uses Greek and Roman allusions throughout. Lethe wards had sunk refers to Lethe, the river of forgetfulness in Hades. Not charioted by Bacchus and his pards refers to Bacchus, the Roman god of wine, whose chariot was drawn by leopards' pards. These allusions link the speaker's desire for escape to ancient ideas of ecstasy and oblivion. 14. Biblical and historical allusion. In stanza 7, Keats mentions the sad heart of Ruth, referring to the biblical character, who represents sorrow and exile. This positions the bird's song as timeless, echoing through human history and personal grief. 15. Classical literary allusions. Keats draws from Spenser, Shakespeare, and Milton. Phrase magic casements, opening on the foam of perilous seas, in fairy lands forlorn, is reminiscent of Spenserian romance and dreamscapes. 16. Caesura. Keats often uses caesura, a pause within a line, for dramatic effect. For example, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry fays. This enhances the poem's lyrical rhythm and mirrors the slow, contemplative tone. 17. Irony. There is a layer of irony in the line. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. While the physical bird is mortal, its song, a metaphor for art or poetry, is eternal. The speaker knows the bird will die, yet he chooses to believe in its immortality. 18. Negative capability. Finally, the poem reflects Keats's famous concept of negative capability, the idea that the poet can dwell in uncertainties and mysteries without the need for logical resolution. The entire poem swings between the opposites of life and death, illusion and reality, and never resolves them. Unknown but important insights. Possible influence of Shakespeare's Hamlet and Macbeth. Use of Lethe wards, reference to the river of forgetfulness in Greek mythology. The poem is often seen as a dialogue between the physical and metaphysical. Keats's medical background influences his visualization of death. Bird as a symbol of the Greek muse or poetic ideal. Critical interpretations. T.S. Eliot criticized Keats for lack of intellectual depth. F.R. Leavis praised the emotional intensity and poetic craftsmanship. Helen Vendler emphasizes the poem as an experience of consciousness. New critics admired the balance of emotion and structure. Intertextual references. Classical mythology, Lethe, Dryad, Bacchus. Medieval and Renaissance influences, echoes of Spenser and Shakespeare. Romantic contemporaries, Shelley's Skylark versus Keats's Nightingale. Quotes for exam use. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget. Was it a vision, or a waking dream? Now more than ever seems it rich to die. Competitive exam tricky facts published in Annals of the Fine Arts, July 1819. Written in one afternoon under a plum tree. One of the few odes where Keats explicitly explores the idea of dying young. The contrast between physical decay and eternal song symbolizes romantic idealism. Competitive exam tricky facts published in Annals of the Fine Arts, July 1819. Written in one afternoon under a plum tree. One of the few odes where Keats explicitly explores the idea of dying young. The contrast between physical decay and eternal song symbolizes romantic idealism. Conclusion. Ode to a Nightingale encapsulates romantic ideals. Masterpiece of emotional depth, poetic craft, and philosophical exploration. Crucial for understanding Keats's worldview.